How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. And I wanted to discuss a topic today that's been making its rounds regarding Elden Ring in the Souls community. Basically, there's been two key words that have been worrying a lot of people. A lot of people have been worried about, is Elden Ring going to be easier just because of these simple two words that these journalists have been titling in their articles. And those keywords are less stressful. I've seen countless articles already that have titled their articles, Elden Ring will be less stressful than Dark Souls. And that conveys the message to some people that it could be easier. That's what some people get from it. That's not what it means at all. But that's one thing you got to remember when you're dealing with journalists, article writers. They are literally taught in school how to clickbait and grab your attention by any means that they need to, by taking words out of context, all kinds of things. Remember, they're journalists. They're going to get viewed. Well, their job is to get views. And in order to do that, some do it the sleazy way and some do it the honest way. You know, where they'll tell you only a snippet of what was actually fully said to grab your attention. You were literally taught in English. I remember in English 102, my advanced English I was in when I was going in for econ at the time. I'll be going back into school for law soon, but I was going in for econ at the time. And yeah, I remember in English 102, we were taught how to specifically word our article or our essays in a certain way that grabs attention. You're taught that and the importance of it, and as well as communications 101. I also took that class, and you're taught how to specifically, literally how to start a video or a speech or anything with confidence and with a certain tone and with certain words that can grab the audience. It's all for grabbing audiences. You got to remember that when you read these articles. They're all just trying to get you to click and to grab an audience. Well, I decided to click on this specific article by PC Gamer, which they put it really good. So it says, Elden Ring director Miyazaki says he doesn't want new players to stress about difficulty. I like that. But it can still convey, what does that mean? You know, I like that better than what I've seen. So if we scroll down, we'll see what Miyazaki actually meant by that. So it says also Miyazaki expects more players to finish Elden Ring than previous Souls games. So if we scroll down here, we can see after I played hours of Elden Ring in last year's network test, I wrote that it was the most flexible Souls game by a long shot. Flexible doesn't necessarily mean easy. There are still bosses in Elden Ring who will stomp you mercilessly until you learn their patterns. But you can now explore the open world looking for easier battles for more gear. FromSoft boss Hidetaki Miyazaki cited that flexibility in a new interview on the PlayStation blog, in which he touched on the notorious difficulty of the studio's games. I'd like new players to feel unpressured and that they can approach the game at their pace, Miyazaki said. I realize that while we offer games with a high level of challenge, we design them in a way that feels fulfilling to overcome. But I don't want new players to worry or stress about that difficulty too much. There's the keyword we're looking for, one of the keywords. They can come back to something later when they're at an impasse so that they can have this freedom of progression and not have to bang their head against the wall over and over. So that last part's very important. They can come back to something later when they're at an impasse so they can have this freedom of progression and not have to bang their head against the wall over and over. So in previous Souls titles, like Dark Souls 1, for example, Ornstein and Smough, that's a boss in Dark Souls 2. That's a boss in Dark Souls 1, Ornstein and Smough, that you have to beat in order to progress. And you have to beat them because it's what comes next is very important to the story. You get basically the Lord Vessel, it's called, and that's where you're going to put these 4 Lord Souls into to get into Gwyn's area. Flame of the Last Kiln, I think, is where Gwyn is, but he's locked in this like prison, and you need to have this vessel, and you acquire that after you beat Ornstein and Smough. It's a very important piece to the story, so you have to beat Ornstein and Smough in order to get the Lord Soul. It's required. There's no going around it or anything. And Ornstein and Smough are also seen as skill check bosses, where they basically test what you've learned so far and they get you ready for what's going to come next. It's very much a skill check boss. What have you learned, basically? Well, Miyazaki stating here how he doesn't want that to be the staple of this game specifically. He doesn't want you to have to worry about defeating this great boss or great challenge in order to progress. And that's more of what he meant than it being like easier. In no way, shape, or form is this game going to be easier. It's just going to allow you to skip the whole game if you want to. It's more about flexibility with Elden Ring. That is the keyword I'm going to use to describe what he means and what this game means. This game is going to demand great flexibility, and that's the theme of it. If you want to go here, go there. If you don't, you don't have to. If you want to ride your horse through the entire game, you can do that. If you want to face every challenge that is in front of you, you can do that. That's really what he means, if anything. He doesn't really mean that it's going to be easy or you're just going to be able to fly through, or it's forgetting what the difficulty is in the series. Not at all. It's more about flexibility. He also says, it's a valid discussion, he said. I feel like our approach to these games, not just Elden Ring, is to design them to encourage the player to overcome adversity. We don't try to force difficulty or make things hard for the sake of it. We want players to use their cunning, study the game, memorize what's happening, and learn from their mistakes. We don't want players to feel like the game is unfairly punishing, but rather that there's a chance to win a difficult encounter and make progress. We understand that Souls-like games are regularly associated with impossible levels of difficulty with high barriers to entry, but we try to design the games to make the cycle of repeatedly trying to overcome these challenges enjoyable in itself. So we hope that Elden Ring and the new options it provides will be a success in that respect. But we try to design the games to make the cycle of repeatedly trying to overcome these challenges enjoyable in itself. That's basically what he wants. He wants to make sure that, yeah, it's going to be difficult, and you'll be able to overcome these challenges, but he wants to make it enjoyable and more accessible to a wider audience. A lot of these Soulsborne titles, from Sekiro to Dark Souls 1 to Bloodborne, Demon Souls, those are more genuinely harder games. The reason why I didn't mention Dark Souls 3 is because Dark Souls 3 is a lot more easier compared to the rest. It is. It's the easiest Souls game aside from all the others. It's the easiest Souls game we've seen so far. But it's not, they're not trying to make Elden Ring easier per se. They're just trying to give you the flexibility of option, and it's catering to your specific playstyle. That's the main goal here. It's not ever to make the games easier. It's to create a challenge and to give you the satisfaction of overcoming that challenge. That's what all of the Souls titles have really been based off of. And so far, FromSoft has done an amazing job at that. And it looks like they're keeping with the same trope. If it's broke, don't fix it, right? That's what I say a lot too with a lot of these great games, because it's true. If they can do it in a new way while keeping the same core aspects of what makes the game great, if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's working, keep using that, But I wanted to talk to you guys about this because, like I said, there's been a lot of debate about difficulty and if FromSoft is catering more to the casual audience this time around than, us, the more hardcore fans who like the more difficult titles. And it happens in other games too, or in other game franchises like Metroid, for instance. I'll be quick on this, but Metroid Prime 4, a game that we still really don't know too much about, we definitely know that Retro Studios has came out and said it's going to be more of a casual game. It's going to include more casual aspects of it that will make it friendly to the casual audience. And it's worried a lot of us in the in the Metroid audience too, or Metroid fan base as well, because we think the same thing. Are they going to make it like drastically more easy, or are they going to make it more harder, or what? And harder is not even really a choice there. It's more easier. When you're talking about like the casual audience, it's more casual, more medium to easy setting for the casual audience. Because if we look back at Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3, Metroid Prime 1 was more casual. I'd say it was definitely more casual, and yes, it did have its challenges, but it was definitely a medium casual game, and it did insane. It did great. It's still one of the high top charting games on Metacritic. I think it's like at 93 or something. It's up there though. And then you have Metroid Prime 2, which wasn't as well received, but was like 10 times harder than Metroid Prime 1. Metroid Prime 2 was definitely way harder, and it was because they introduced this aspect in the game where you have light and dark Aether. The planet you're on is called Aether, but it was split between two of itself. Dark Aether, you can travel to Dark Aether from Light Aether via portal. Well, when you travel to Dark Aether, the very atmosphere around you is poisoning. It poisons you and your health goes down. And there's a special suit you can get that can lessen, the blow you take. But that suit doesn't come till later till you fight like a gate boss enemy. But still, you're constantly having to overcome this challenge of the environment itself is trying to kill you alongside the enemies. And there's this special boss that you fight. It's called Quadraxis towards the ending of the game, and you already have that special suit that doesn't take as much, where the atmosphere doesn't take as much damage. So you have the suit on, and even though the damage isn't as harsh because of the suit, it's still doing damage to you, and the boss is difficult if you don't know what you're doing. So you're fighting this boss, and there's no protective barriers. Usually the way you progress around Dark Aether is you shoot these crystals, these light crystals, and it'll pop a bubble. And you go in the bubble and you won't take damage because it'll bring light Aether atmosphere into Dark Aether. And that's how you get around, using these bubbles. And there are no bubbles in the Quadraxis boss fight. You are definitely taking all kinds of damage while fighting him. So if you haven't got like every energy tank, if you haven't got most of the stuff you should have by then, it can be extremely challenging. That boss fight can. And like I said, you are taking damage the entire boss fight around from the atmosphere, not even including what Quadraxis himself is doing to you. And he's a hard boss. He's not difficult. Like I said, if you don't know his mechanics, he could be very difficult. That wasn't as well received compared to Metroid Prime 1. So the harder difficulty for Metroid Prime 2 definitely turned off a lot of people that played 1. Metroid Prime 3, they tried to, dial it back, but they made it too easy this time. So Metroid Prime 1 is like the perfect balance. I feel in certain situations it could be a little more difficult. But then in Metroid Prime 2, it's very high on the difficult chart. Metroid Prime 3, very low on the difficult chart. Very easy this time around. And both games weren't well received. 2 or 3 were not well received because of the extremities of difficulty, So I hope with Metroid Prime 4 that while, yes, they need to cater to more casual audiences, they don't completely make the game easy. Make it like Metroid Prime 2 and add a little more difficulty for Metroid Prime 3. Just to balance it, or from Metroid Prime 2, to balance it out. Give it some toughness. I want it to still be a challenge, but yes, it should be accessible to more audiences. And so I'm not against that if they do it right. And it sounds like they're going to balance it right. And this can also help. This news we just got like a few days ago as well can also help relieve some of that stress, because a couple old key features are coming back to Elden Ring that have been in like every other game, FromSoft game thus far. And that is the addition of multiple endings and new Game Plus mode. So we scroll down, we can see here that it says right here, Miyazaki bluntly stated that both New Game Plus and multiple endings will be intact in Elden Ring during his interview, which also covered the director's own gaming habits and decisions around the game's difficulty setting. Both features are staples of the Souls franchise, with players typically deciding the ending they want after beating the final boss instead of through story decisions made throughout the duration of a game. So we also have that inclusion, of course, which is great. We've seen it, as they mentioned, in like every other title. So it's great that it's coming back. And that also can bring somewhat of a relief for some that, yeah, maybe the first run through, maybe if it's easier than some of you may like, there is a New Game Plus. So you will be able to ramp up the difficulty. But I do understand that some people may think, you know what, I want to play it casual regularly, but I still want it to be fairly difficult on my first playthrough. I don't want to have to beat it, then play a new game plus just to, get the difficulty I want, which I understand completely. But as I stated, as Miyazaki himself mentioned in the last article, it's more so of flexibility. So keep that in mind. It's about flexibility. Do I want to beat this boss right now, or do I not want to? From what I've seen, of all the footage I've seen of other people playing the closed network test, what is his name? Wow, Margid, the Fell Omen, I think his name is Margid, something like that. It's on the lines of the I can't believe I can't remember that, but I think it's Margid the Fell Omen, or Margit. One of those. He's basically the boss you fight in the closed network test before you get to Stormvale Castle. You fight him, and he's pretty difficult. He was giving a lot of these people a run for their money. A lot of these people who were playing it, it was very hard to beat. Like, he was very challenging. And they have it's cool to see that there are phase 2s coming back. So when you get him to half health, he'll start bringing out these hammers and all these other, like, throwing knives and stuff. So it's really cool to see that coming back too. But the Fell Omen is not an easy boss fight. He was a pretty hard boss fight, and I can't remember who it was who said it specifically, but they said that they wonder if that's going to be one of the first big bosses in the game, because they can see him definitely being a challenge for a lot of players, which should excite you guys. It really should. That means that they're keeping the same trope that they have been, and the difficulty isn't going anywhere. Well, I hope you guys are kind of more relieved after this video. That was the whole goal of this video. I hope some of you are more understanding on what's going on and realize that depending on how you want to play it will depend on how difficult it is. If you want it to be difficult, fight every enemy that you can find. It's not like Dark Souls 1, as I previously mentioned, where you have to fight Ornstein and Smough in order to get to the Lord Vessel. No, it's going to be where you can skip Ornstein and Smough, get the Lord Vessel, and then come back to them later when you feel, you're up for the challenge, which can make it very easy for some who want to do everything else and then come back to an easier boss fight later when they're obviously incredibly buffed. But for a lot of us, I feel it's dependent on how you guys want to take this game, and that's what they're going with here, and I can't wait to see how it plays out. And I think this game is going to be fantastic. I feel this game is going to be the staple and foundation of what a lot of other franchises and studios use when making a true open world game. I guarantee you they're going to use Elden Ring as a foundation when creating open worlds, because I know already from hearing what I have, it's definitely a balanced, flexible experience that all players can enjoy. Nonetheless, though, as I mentioned, I hope this kind of lifted some weight off of you guys, and I hope some of you feel better. I know I do. That definitely tells me a lot, and that definitely helps. But nonetheless, I love you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and